resign because of the anti-Semitism in their own party. It is absolutely unprecedented in Europe today. And that is why I think it's incumbent on all of us to help to do something about this. And as I said earlier, it's a great sadness that it's come to this. And it is something I think we've got to bring to an end as soon as we can.
So would you use a term like letterbox or bank robbers when talking about Muslim women in Burma?
No, as I said, for you talked about articles the Prime Minister's written in the past. I think he's given an explanation of that. Alex Rossi, please.
Chancellor, just to pick up where we left off, you were asked, would you use that language about Muslim women? Would you use that language?
Well, I think that... Yeah.
The research at the time showed that Islamophobic incidents rose by 375% after Boris Johnson made those remarks.
All politicians will choose their own words and ways to explain whatever is the point they're trying to get across. And so we've all got our own type of language. But as I said, on that particular article, the Prime Minister has explained what was the purpose of his article, how he's actually trying to defend the rights of women, in that case, to wear what they like. And I think that articles like that are best read in their entirety so that people can understand the point being made, rather than someone picking out certain words and focusing just on those.
With respect, would you use that language? Would you use that language?
I think. Look, I've answered the question. All politicians will use the language that they choose to try and explain a point. And I think I've explained the point, and I think we understand, and the Prime Minister has explained himself why he's used certain words in that article or others in the past. But when it comes to this is now about the future choice of the country, which direction we go into. I've been focusing.
So just to be clear, you are not saying that you wouldn't use that language.
I'm saying...
You're saying it's okay, it's acceptable.
I think you can hear clearly what I'm saying, and that is that in this election, when it comes to bringing people together, because that is an outcome I want to see from this election, as a country now for well over a year, longer, many people have been divided on whether it's on issues, and I think that when it comes to bringing the country together, the Labour Party under Corbyn's leadership has chosen deliberately a route to divide people based on race and religion, or whether they live in an urban area, a rural area, according to their income, and that is wrong. And we need a one-nation party that works hard to bring people together, and that's the Conservative Party.
So take away that you think that if it's in context, someone can call a Muslim woman in a burqa a letterbox or a bank robber?
That's your interpretation, it's not mine. Bill Jacobs, please.
Bill Jacobs, Bolton News. You've spoken extensively about the cost of Corbyn. If you win the election, what resources will you transfer up to places like Bolton to assist their newly Conservative-led council to tackle high levels of child poverty and record waiting lists in the Royal Bolton Hospital in October?
So we've been very clear that as a one-nation party, it means that looking after all communities, all parts of the UK. And one of the things that we've tried to bring out is the need to level up across the country. When it comes to investment, I mean, first of all, we need to make sure that no part of the country is left behind. So, today when I was out meeting constituents here in the local area, some of the thoughts I heard people saying, look, when it comes to infrastructure investment, to them it feels like that the South East gets more of a share of investment than the North. And I think we need a better approach to that to make sure, in terms of roads and rail and fibre optic and other economic investment, the North is not left behind, and it certainly won't be. And look at some of the commitments we already made, including, for example, to rail. But you've also mentioned local government services, whether it's sort of social care and NHS. And we have also committed to funding, significant funding, for example, with the NHS, £34 billion extra a year over the next few years. And this is a record increase. And we'll make sure, as we've seen with the hospital programs we've announced and hospital renovations, that it's throughout the country, including here. But to do all of this, and this brings it back to the fundamental point that I've made today, is that it requires a strong economy. Labour can promise anything. It can throw out these promises like confetti, but they mean nothing if they cannot be delivered, because Labour's path will lead to economic crisis, and they won't actually be able to deliver on the promises they've made, and instead people will pay the price with their jobs and their wages in so many other ways. We will work hard to keep the economy strong as we have and move from this decade of recovery to a decade of renewal for the whole of the UK.
Any idea of the figure of how much you've moved north?
We haven't split numbers in terms of regions, but I think we've clearly shown that no part of the UK would be left behind. Thank you. I have Claire from the Daily Mail.
Thank you. Boris Johnson has said his ambition is to increase the national insurance threshold to 12,500. In the manifesto, you've limited that to 9,500. Can you guarantee that this will be introduced in the next Parliament?
What we've been clear about, first of all, we want to cut taxes. We're a tax-cutting party. Whenever we can afford them, we want to make sure that hard-working people keep more of their own cash. And we've done that in the last 9 years, for example, with the cuts in income tax that have benefited over 13 million people. I think, in fact, taken 4 million people out of income tax altogether. When it comes to further tax cuts, we're very focused on getting national insurance payments down. And we're going to do that by increasing the threshold. In my first budget, we will increase the threshold to 9,500, and that's a saving of just under around £85 or just under £100 for the average person, and that's for about 30 million people. And we've also said in our manifesto that it is our ambition to go further, and at every budget we will look to see how much further we can go. I can't say to you today, I wish I could, that it will definitely be done in X years or by the end of the Parliament. We'll work hard to do that, but because we are going to be prudent about the nation's finances, we will do it as we can afford it as a country, but I'm confident that we can keep making progress towards that goal at each budget. I have Arj Singh from the HuffPost.
Hi, Sajid. You're talking about the cost of a Labour government today and being straight with the British public, but you refuse to publish an economic analysis from the Treasury of your Brexit deal. So can you be straight with the British public and commit to publishing assessments of both the withdrawal agreement and any future trade deal if you're returned to office?
Okay. First of all, I'm glad you separated. There's the withdrawal agreement and there's the future trade deal. And so first with the withdrawal agreement, which we know the exact terms of, because they've been presented to Parliament. And as we've said, if we are re-elected with the majority, we'll bring that back straight away before Christmas and get it done by the end of January. For that withdrawal agreement, we have published a full impact assessment for the withdrawal agreement. We've done that. You then asked about an economic assessment for a future trade deal. We've agreed the principles of that. It's a lot more ambitious than anything that's been looked at before, so including any analysis, any of the sort of scenarios that were looked at in the sort of November last year analysis published by the Treasury. And as we progress through Parliament with the future economic deal, because it will require a new treaty in itself, so a new trade agreement, we will be publishing information, including economic information, to Parliament to make sure Parliament has all the information that it needs. I can't put a time on it now, but we will absolutely make sure Parliament has the information it needs as we progress. And did Jennifer Williams make it from Manchester Evening News? Yeah, hello.
Thanks. A few weeks ago at your speech in Manchester, you told me that you, under your new borrowing rules, you could easily afford to build all of Northern Powerhouse Rail. over the course of 5 years. There's no costings at all in your manifesto, which you say is very, very detailed and transparent for Northern Powerhouse Rail, not even for the Manchester to Leeds section, which you've firmly committed to. So how can we believe that this is an infrastructure revolution? And why have you not committed to all of Northern Powerhouse Rail in your manifesto if you say you can easily afford to do so? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, the Manchester to Leeds section is in the current figures because that was announced before the general election, so that's accounted for. And what we talked about during this campaign is the additional, so on top of that and many other projects that will be going ahead, what more we can do. With the change in the fiscal rules that I've announced in that speech you referred to that I made a couple of weeks ago, from looking at from an average of 2% of GDP in terms of investment to 3%, that releases approximately about an additional 20 billion a year. So let's say up to 100 billion over a parliament, roughly. Of that, in the manifesto, what we have done is set out how some of that will be used. I think approximately about a quarter of that. And the rest we have yet to still set out. And the reason for that is that we want to, if we win the election, if we're lucky enough to win, that when we get back, as we work towards the first budget, then we will look to see what more that we should commit to within that envelope. What I can assure you of is that in the rules that we've set out, that there is room for big but sensible economic projects. You've mentioned Northern Powerhouse Rail, something I'm very keen on. And I also, in a response to the previous question, I talked very much about rail is hugely important, but also with roads, I want to see investment in fibre optic connections. Now, we can do that, we can all afford to do that, but as long as we stick to these tight fiscal rules. And again, with Labour, there are all sorts of promises in 1.2 trillion, as we heard today. They cannot be delivered. In the process of even trying, we will enter an economic crisis and the whole country will pay a price. It will be crisis by Christmas. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I will, before I go, I think I missed the gentleman out and we'll take one final question.
Sorry, it's John Crace from The Guardian. In the Tory leadership election, during the debate, you managed to get everyone, all the other candidates, to agree to an inquiry into Islamophobia in the Tory party. Are you disappointed that that has now been watered down into a sort of general inquiry into all forms of racism?
Yeah. First of all, thanks. Sorry I missed you there, John, earlier. But on that point, that no, I'm not disappointed. It's not been, nothing's going to be watered down. We are absolutely committed to doing everything we can, doing more to root out any kind of prejudice amongst anyone who's got any association with the Conservative Party. There is no excuse for it. I am, the Prime Minister is, and as I was saying earlier, every single member of the government, all my fellow colleagues as candidates, and nothing will be watered down. And all I'd say is that, please wait to, as the Prime Minister said, I've said, we will start the inquiry before Christmas, so there's not that long to wait. And I think that once that's sort of published, the terms, I think people will see just how serious we are. We will never, ever tolerate any kind of prejudice of any kind. Thank you all very much. Thank you.